So let's begin by praying that the zchus of our learning should be a help to bring home the hostages, to protect our soldiers and Am Yisrael and all of the innocents, and bring a speedy end to the war.
Amen.
And with that, we'll begin. I'm a little embarrassed to say that I didn't listen to the last shir. I've been a little preoccupied with some other things. However, I think we got to the end of the sugya that we got to.
Yes, I reviewed it. Yes.
Good, thank you. Because I had done some other preparation for that last year, which I don't think I got to some more background on Truma and whatnot. But then I decided we're going to go ahead. So the next part of the sugya is going to deal with the part of the Mishnah. Wait a second. It's going to deal with the part of the Mishnah that talks about how eating and drinking are not mitztarev. And the Gemara is going to refer to this Mishnah in Me'ilah, and I decided that for the moment, what we're going to do is we're going to look first at the Mishnah in Me'ilah and understand it, and then we'll see how you'll see how it fits into the context. Oh, and here's Paul. So wait a second. And Shalom, Paul.
Shalom. Shalom.
Okay.
Where are you?
I'm at home here in my new apartment.
Okay.
And
You didn't yet go
I
abroad.
haven't gone abroad yet. Regarding that, I think I'm going to go at the end of May. But we'll see. In the meantime, without further ado, I just explained to Michael that we're going to first look at this Mishnah in Masechet Me'ilah as an introduction to the sugya that we're going to do back in the Gemara in Yoma, so that we have a basic understanding of what the Gemara in Yoma is talking about. So, this is the 4th chapter of Masechet Me'ilah. The Mishnah says, "Kodshei hamizbeach mitztarfim ze im ze leMe'ilah u'lechayev aleim mishum pigul notar utamei." So what is this talking about? So of course we know Me'ilah is an Isur Torah, whereby somebody benefits from Kodshim in the amount that's a Shaveh Pruta, that's worth a Pruta. A Pruta is worth of whatever it is that's Kodesh, then they're Chayav. That's the view of Me'ilah. So the Mishnah here declares that Kodshei HaMizbeach mitztarfin ze im ze leMe'ilah. So what does that mean? That if you have different Kodshim, let's say a little bit of a korban chatat, and a little bit of a korban olah, a little bit of a korban shlamim, right? So you're not allowed to derive benefit from those things once they're kodesh. And so the Mishnah tells us that they're all mitztaref zayim ze leMe'ilah. That is, if you took a little bit from, let's say, an olah, a little bit from a shlamim, and together they were worth a Shaveh Pruta, then you're chayav for Me'ilah, even though you've taken from different things, different objects that are kodesh.
But each Kodesh is a korban. The korban is always a whole korban. How can you take it apart? I don't understand.
I'm not sure what you don't understand. Let's say, so let me just say, so let's say someone brings a korban olah. So let's say, right? So you're supposed to burn that on the mizbeach.
Okay.
So let's say somebody, before it gets burnt on the mizbeach, somebody takes a little bit and eats it.
Only the Kohanim are allowed to eat
No,
from the
first of all,
korban.
even a kohen isn't allowed to eat a korban olah. Nobody's
Okay.
allowed to eat a.
Okay.
So if he eats a little bit of korban olah, then he'll be chayav for me'ilah. So
The
let's
korban
say
is not the korban is not legit. I don't. You didn't do the korban as you should have done it. So it's not a korban.
no, but the rest of the
It's pagum.
okay.
I don't know.
No, it's not. First, it's not pagum. But okay, you're getting you're okay. Okay, hold on a second. Maybe we need to dig a little bit, not dig deeper, but let's just say, maybe we need to look a little bit more into Meila and understand it. We had talked about it in the past, but we never really learned it. And so maybe you're right. Maybe I need to explain this a little bit more. And so to that end, just a second. Let's get a better idea from the Rambam about Meila generally. I think that'll be the easiest way to do this. Okay, this is the Rambam Hilchot Meila. Yesh bichalan shalosh mitzvot. Echad mitzvah taseh, u'shtay mitzvot lo taseh, v'zehu pirtan. Aleph, l'shalem hamoel asher chata b'tosefet chomesh v'korban. Zehu din hamoel. Right, so somebody is moel, and he'll explain Meila inside, but whoever is over and who's moel, so he has to pay whatever the worth of what he was moel, and add a fifth. Bet shelo la'avod b'kadoshim. You're not allowed to work with kadoshim, because you can't use them. And Gimel shelo ligzos kadoshim. You're not allowed to shear kadoshim. And now he's going to explain. So let's look at the beginning. Asur lehedyo le'anot mikadshei Hashem. Bein midvarim akrevim al gabei hamizbeach. Bein mikadshei bedek habayit. L'chol hane'aneh b'shaveh pruta mikadshei Hashem ma'al. So that's the basic explanation. So what we mean by kadshim are both kadshei mizbeach, korbanot that are brought onto the mizbeach, and also things that were mukdash to the Beit HaMikdash, meaning they were mukdash to Bedek Habayit, for the upkeep of the Beit HaMikdash. So if anybody derives benefit from any kodshim, that's the value of a pruta, then that's Meila. He was Moel.
So you mean money? For the Bedek Habayit, you put the people put money into the box. Yes, there is the haftarah where they say how it works, and then somebody comes and takes some of the money for himself.
So there's money that's mukdash to Bedek Habayit, but you could also be makdish things or property.
Okay, objects.
Yes. I could take this bowl and be makdish oto lebedek habayit, or I could take my computer, or I could take virtually any object that you want. You can be makdish to bedek habayit. So you could also be makdish, a box of cereal, or an animal. You can also be makdish an animal. In other words, you could be when you're makdish an animal as a korban. So then it becomes whatever korban was makdish. We could also just be makdish an animal to bedek habayit, in which case it's not kodshem mizbeach. It doesn't necessarily go on the mizbeach. It's property that's owned by the Beit HaMikdash. Okay? דברים שהותרו באכילה מן הקורבנות, כגון בשר חטאת ואשם, אחר זריקת דמן, או שתי הלחם, אחר זריקת דם שני הכבשים, ein bahen me'ila. Okay, so things that have been made permitted to be eaten from korbanot, like, and then he gives the examples of basar chatat or basar asham after zrikat damam. So let's say somebody had to bring a korban chatat. So he brings it to the Kohen, it's shechted the Kohanim. The next thing the Kohanim have to do, right? So they have to shecht it, they have to be mekabel the dam, then they molich the dam, they bring the dam to the mizbeach, and then they have to sprinkle the blood on the mizbeach. Those are the 4 avodot that are pertinent to any animal sacrifice. So once the zrikat adam has happened, then the Isur of Me'ila goes away from the Korban. But the fourth Zrikat Adam is you could be Mo'el. And similarly for the Shtei HaLechem, which, right, it's a special Korban, the Shtei HaLechem it's brought on Atzeret, it's brought on Shavuot, along with 2 Kvasim. So similarly, if somebody was ne'neh from the Shtei HaLechem after Zrikat Adam of the Shnei Kvasim, then also ein behen me'ila.
Even if he's not Kohen, or it's even
if he's not a Kohen. If he's not a Kohen and he eats things that he's not allowed to eat, that's a separate Isur, but that's not me'ila. In other words, if you're not a Kohen, you're not allowed to eat a korban chatat.
נכון, זה מה I understood.
Right, so let's say after Zrikat Adam, a non-Kohen eats from a korban chatat, he's not over on me'ila. He'll be over on eating a korban chatat that's a sur to him because he's not allowed to eat that kodshi. But that's not me'ila.
It's a
different avera.
Okay.
Even if a zar, even if a non-Kohen ate from these things, or things like them, since at that point in time, after Zrikat Adam, those korbanot have now become permitted for some people, in this case, Kohanim, to benefit from. So anybody else who benefits from them is not over on the Isur of Me'ila. Let's say even after Zrikat Adam, maybe they became pasul. Maybe after Zrikat Adam, maybe they found out that the animal was a treifa, or maybe it became tameh. Actually, the treifa thing maybe not, but the tzuma thing, yeah. Since they had a shad heter, and since there was a moment in time when these things were permitted for at least some people to benefit from, then anyone who benefits from them is not over on Me'ila. So that's the din. These are basic dinim of Me'ila. And now he explains Kol Mo'el B'Zadon Lokeh, right? So somebody who does Me'ila on purpose with intent to be Mo'el. So what's his din? So he doesn't get the chance to pay and add a fifth. He gets malkot. But he says, he also has to pay it back. He doesn't pay the fifth. וכל נדריך, מפי השמועה למדו שזו הזרה לאוכל בשר עולה, הואיל וכולה לשם, והוא הדין לשאר כל קודש שהוא לשם לבדו, בין מקדשי המזבח, בין מקדשי בדק הבית, אם נהנה בשווה פרוטה לוקה. This is how the Rambam understands that the source for this din comes from the pasuk here in Dvarim. Lo tuchal le'achol bisharecha ma'asar degancha b'tiroshcha b'yitzerecha u'b'charot b'karcha b'tzonecha v'chol nederecha asher tidor v'nidvatecha t'rumat yadecha. Yeah. So mipi Shmuel amdu, this is an azhara for eating the meat of an olah, since it's entirely supposed to be given to Hashem, right? So the olah is the korban that no one's allowed to eat. So this was, Chazal cited this as a source for saying that one is not allowed to eat of the olah, and this would also be true for any other kodesh that was specifically only for Hashem, whether it's kodshei mizbech, whether it's kodshei bedek habayit. If somebody's ne'aneh b'shaveh pruta b'mezid, he's lokeh.
This could also be a kohen. If a kohen is eating from the olah.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody can be over on Me'ilah, even a kohen. If he eats something, or not just eat, if he benefits from something that he's not allowed to benefit from.
But maybe he sells some of the meat or something like this. So that's also Me'ilah.
Yeah. So if he takes some of the olah, the olah, the meat of the olah has to be entirely burnt. So if he takes some of the meat and uses it for his own purpose, so he's over on Me'ilah. So that's the din of the ma'al b'mezid. Ma'al b'shgaga b'shalei ma sheneneh v'tosefet chomesh. Right, so he has to pay for whatever he benefited from. In other words, it's a monetary amount. He'll pay for the monetary equivalent or the monetary value of whatever he benefited from, and he has to add a fifth, which we've explained before. It means he adds 25% to the
20%. 20%.
No. Listen to what I'm saying. He adds 25%.
Hamishito.
So now that makes it a chamishit. You don't take a chamishit of what you start with. You make it a chamishit at the end. So you take 25% and add it on, and then that becomes the chomesh of the whole. This is the Chol Torah Kula. When they say chomesh, this is what it means.
To whom does he pay this sum?
He has to pay it back to the Beit HaMikdash.
Okay.
It was owned by the Beit HaMikdash, right?
To the Otzar Beit HaMikdash, something like this.
To Bedek HaBayit.
Bedek HaBayit.
That's what Bigadol. That's what Bedek HaBayit is, as I understand it. Mal bishkaga mashem ashneim v'tosefet chomesh mevi ayil b'shnei sla'im. Right? He also has to bring a korban. He has to bring an ayil that's worth 2 selah. Umakrivo asham, and he brings that as an asham umitchaper lo, and that gives him his kapara. V'zehu hanikra asham mi'ilot. This, when we talk about asham mi'ilot, that's what this is. It's an ayil that's worth at least 2 selah. That's brought when somebody is doing tshuva for having been over on Me'ilah b'shogeg. Shudemar v'chata'a b'shgaga m'kadshe Hashem v'yet hashemot v'yet asher chata min hakodesh v'shalem et chamishito Shiluma keret b'tosefet chomesh in havat korban mitzvah taseh. So this is right when the Rambam listed the mitzvot that he's going to talk about. So this is now he's saying that's the first mitzvah that I was talking about. This is the mitzvah of Miluga. Tashluma keren v'havata asham makvina kapara. You have to pay off the principal of whatever you benefited from, and you have to bring the asham in order to get your kapara. They hold back the kapara. But if you did that, but you didn't pay the chomesh, that doesn't hold back your kapara. Okay. Yesh dvarim she'en chayavim alein mi'ila midivrei Torah, אבל אסור ליהנות בהם מדברי סופרים, והנהנה מהם משלם קרן בלבד, ואינו מוסיף חומש, ואינו מביא אשם. Right, so there's certain things that Chazal or goes there to have a din that's like Mi'ila, but they don't have all the same dinim with Mi'ila. So there's certain things that you're chayav Mi'ila, that you're not chayav midioraita, but nonetheless you're not allowed to benefit from them midivrei sofrim. And if you are neheneh from these things, which he'll talk about, you pay the keren, but you don't pay the chomesh, and you don't bring a korban hashem. Now, kol kadshei mizbeach, ben kadshei kadashim, ben kadashim kalim, asurim begiza va'avodah. Right. So, any kind of kadshei mizbeach, whether it's korbanot that are brought on the mizbeach, whether they're kadshei kadshim kalim, you're not allowed to shear them or use them for work. Right? So the Bechor is an example that the Torah gives, but was understood refers to any kind of kodshim. But gozez et ashura or ve'ed betzon lo kamin Torah. So midioraita, you're not allowed to shear an ox, right, or to use tzon for work if they're kadshei mizbech, if they were mukdash to be brought as korbanot. B'tolei she'enoka goes if you just tear off some of the hair, that's not the same thing as shearing. V'yir eli she'eno lokeh ad shigzos kedei rochav hasit kafu lo'i hize chamur mishabat. Giza is also asur b'Shabbat, so he's giving it the same shiur that you have on Shabbat. Whenever the Rambam says the Yir Eli, which is not common, right? That means that the Rambam is saying this based on his own judgment. Wherever he doesn't say it, it means that he has a source that preceded him. Where he's saying the Yir Eli, he's saying, this is what I think based on what based on my knowledge and based on my judgment. That's just a general rule in the Rambam. And actually, recently I was going over the Rambam's, one of the Rambam's letters, and he talks about this specifically. He explains when because the Rambam was, as you know, he was challenged regarding the Mishnah Torah almost immediately upon its publication for not having brought sources. And he defended himself in various ways. And one of the places he defends himself is in a letter to Rabbi Pinchas HaDayan, who was another Dayan in Egypt, that the Rambam had some correspondence with. And he says that this is one, I don't know, maybe it's the only place where he says it, but he says, everything I'm bringing to you, everything that's in the Mishnah Torah, I have sourced it from the Talmud Bavli, the Talmud Yerushalmi, from the Tosefta, from the Midrashei Halacha. Those are my sources. If I see something, if I bring something in the name from the Gaonim, and I'll say that the Gaonim say. And if I don't have another source for it, but I think it's right, I'll say B'yir Eli. All right, that's a digression. Okay, let's. Just a second.
So the Meila is a very specific Avera.
Yeah, it's a very specific.
Not how it doesn't have the same meaning as today, where it's a very global Avera.
Right. Colloquially, right? You take the lashon of Megillah, and it's been expanded, but in halacha, this is what it means. This is what it's referring to. This is Perek Bet. We'll just do a little bit of this. Kadshin Kalim ein malalim behen ad sheyizarek adam. So Kadshin Kalim, which would be like Shlamim, Korban Pesach, Bechor, Maaser Behemah, those are all Kadshin Kalim. So there isn't Meila, ein malalim behen, meaning a Meila doesn't apply to them until Ad sheyizarek adam. Right, so these are korbanot, means again they were.
So it's the contrary. Before, for the other korbanot, it's after.
Yeah, because there. Right, so
just the opposite.
Right, so there, because what do we say? Hold on. דברים שותרו באכילת מן הקורבנות, כגון בשר חטאת בשם, אחר זריקת דמם, או שתי הלחם, אחר זריקת דם שניהם, זה אין בהם מעילה. So there, we'll see the difference, because there the
opposite.
Yes.
But the Korban Pesach, you're not allowed to eat the whole Korban Pesach. You bring it home, so.
No, you don't.
That's the Korban Pesach that you.
No, but that is so. Then
it's
a korban.
You have the shita in the Bet HaMikdash. You bring it home and you eat it. Yeah, no.
A korban that you're allowed to eat, you're allowed to eat it.
Yeah.
That's not milah. Okay. Let's see. Kadshin Kalim ein mo'alin behen ad sheyizarek adam. Mizrak adam mo'alin be'emurehen ad sheyitzu lebeit hadeshen. Shaharehen leishim. So Kadshin Kalim. So for example, okay, Korban Pesach is Kadshin Kalim. So there isn't any mi'ilah for them until you zorek the dam. So once you zorek the dam for Korban Pesach, so Seder, you're allowed to eat the Korban Pesach, but what about the emurin? The emurin are the things that you're not, the fats that are in the innards that you're not allowed to eat, right? There's certain, like the chalev, you're not allowed to eat, right? Mo'alim be'emurehem ad sheyitzu lebeit hadeshen. If you get benefit from those things before they go out to Beit Hadeshem, is before they're burnt, Sharehen leishim, because those are supposed to be burnt. Ve'in mo'alim b'dvar hane'achal. The reason to me'ilah regarding something that is eaten, in other words, once you're permitted to eat it, then you're permitted to eat it. Kamosha be'ernu. Afilu he'ala ha'emorin shalhem lemizbeach kodem zrika. Even if you put the emorin to be burnt on the mizbech before zrika, which you're not supposed to do, but ein ma'alim behen ad sheyizarek adam. There's no me'ilah that's applicable to them until the blood is thrown, until it's
so for the Korban Pesach, it's not only shechted in the Beit HaMikdash. The Kohanim also extract the
they have to extract. They have to extract. Well, this is what happens. Anybody who we could skip to that in a second.
Yeah, for the next Pesach, just
as a right. It's described in the beginning of Perek Shishi of Psachim, whole process of what was done. So of course, for the Korban Pesach, you had a huge number of people coming. They had to shech the Korban Pesach in three groups, right? They would a bunch of people would pile in, and then when they would close the doors, and then they had Kohanim, the Kohanim were lined up in lines, and they had the people who would shecht, and they had a Kohen who would capture the blood, and because there were so many, the whole areas got filled up. They would capture the blood in a kli, and then they would pass it up. They wouldn't actually walk it themselves to the mizbeach. Let's say, imagine you have lines and lines of kohanim. Each of them has a kli to capture blood, and they did what they would do is they had one line where the kelim were gold and one line where the kelim were silver. They would alternate gold and silver. They would, so then the korban would be shechted, the blood would be captured, and then one kohen would pass that kli to the next kohen, and they would pass it until it gets to the kohen.
A chain.
Yes, it's what's the word I'm looking? It's a
they do when they're running. The baton is
when you process
relay.
line.
A relay. Okay.
I can't. What was Henry Ford's chidush? Right. The
Assembly line.
What is it? The assembly line. It's like an assembly line, except they're not assembling. Or it's like the fire brigades that used to
bucket brigade.
A bucket brigade, right? So that's what they would pass it on to the Kohen, and he would be until it gets to a Kohen who's next to the Mizbeach. He's Zorek the Dam, and then it would get passed back. Anyway, once that was done, though, then they would give the shechted animal would be given to the Baalim, right? Whoever brought it. And then they would go to a different part of the Azara, and they would hang it up. And we learned basically what they did when we were learning. We learned in Tamid, like they had to strip it of its skin, and then they had to open it up and take out the different parts. And so yes, the emurim, these fats and things that are on the inside, that those get burnt on the mizbech, they would put them into a kli, and those would get passed up to be burnt on the mizbech. So, so this isn't specifically about the Korban Pesach, but it could be about the Korban Pesach. Kodem zrika, ein mo'elin behen ad sheyizarek adam. Yizrak adam, אף על פי שעדיין הן בחוץ ולא הפסירן מועלים בהן, שהזריקה מועלת ליוצא בין להקל בין להחמיר. So, wait, did we skip something here?
What does it mean?
Hold on a second. פילהל האמורים שלהם במזבח קודם זריקה אין מועלים בהן עד שיזרק אדם. Okay, but once the emurim are taken out, Otzia Mirahin Lechutz, in Molin Ben Ad Sheyizarek Adam. Not taken out of the if they're taken out of the Azara, right? If the fats and the organs were taken outside the temple courtyard, when it means the chutz, this means they're taken out of the Azara. You're not allowed to bring those things outside of the Azara. They're supposed to go on the mizbeach. They get burnt, and then ultimately the ash gets put into the Beit HaDeshen.
So what would be a meila in this procedure?
If you're neheneh from the emurim, If you get a hunt, in other words, if you take it for whatever purpose, in other words, for your personal benefit, whatever that is, kol kadshe kadashim mo'alin bahen, anything that's kadshe kadshim, you're chayav from mi'ila, mishehu k'dishu ad sheyizarek adam. So from the time you're makdish, let's say a korban, like an animal to be a korban chatat, from the time it's mukdash, all the way up until the time that the blood is thrown onto the mizbeach. If you take advantage of the animal anytime during that period of time, then you'll be over on Me'ilah. Nizrak hadam mo'alim behen b'dvar shekulo li'ishim. Then once the blood is sprinkled onto the mizbeach, so you can be over on Me'ilah for any part of the animal that has to be burnt entirely on the mizbeach. Ad she'yisaref, until it's burnt, v'yetzela beit hadeshen, ve'ein mo'alim b'davar ha'ne'achal. And you're not, there isn't Me'ilah on something that's eaten, kamoshe be'ernu, ketzad. Ha'olah, echad olat ha'of, v'echad olat behema, v'ha'kometz, v'ha'lavona, u'minchat kohanim, v'chavitim, u'minchat nesachim, mo'alim bahen, mishad hekdeshan, ad sheyetzu achar sreifatan al ha'mizbeach lebeit hadeshen. So if you have a korban olah, right, which is kulo li'ishim, it's supposed to be entirely burnt, whether it's an olat oaf, right, a fowl, or whether it's an animal, and hakometz, this would be flour that the kohen would take in his hand to make a korban mincha. The levona was also put on some of the korbanot mincha. Minchat kohanim, the hachavitim. So these are different kinds of korbanot mincha, minchat nesachim. All of these, if you derive benefit from them, from the time that we were makdish the object, right, either the animal or the mincha or the nesachim, which would be wine, until ad sheitzu achar srifatan al mizbeach, till such time, excuse me, that they're burnt completely on the mizbeach, and then the deshen goes out to the Beit HaDeshen outside of the mikdash. So I'm not sure how much more we have to get into this. This was really just to give like a very quick introduction to this. I think what we should do is go back to the Mishnah that we were starting to look at. Excuse me. So the Mishnah says, "Kodshei hamizbeach mitztarfim ze im ze lemi'ilah u'chayev alehem mishum tigul notar v'tameh." So we'll explain this in a second, but again, the reason we're doing this is because the Gemara is going to quote this Mishnah. And you may remember a few weeks ago, Paul, it was you, I think, that brought up this issue in the Mishnah. When the Mishnah talks, the Mishnah Yoma says that ochel v'shotein, right, are not mitzaref. Eating and drinking on Yom Kippur, they're not mitzaref. And we said, what you offered as an idea was maybe they're not mitzaref because the shiurim are different, right? They're inherently different, so you can't really make a tziruf. But we also said there's another way of looking at it, which was what? Why is it Achilah and Shtiyah mitzaref?
There were two different categories, and with respect to getting Yeshuva Dat.
Yes. So and so what we're going to see now in the Gemara is essentially the Gemara is going to entertain both of these ideas and make the conclusion that Michael Schwartz just said, that the reason they're not mitzaref is because of this issue of Yishuv Hadat. So so for us, we want to have like just at least a basic understanding of what the Mishnah is talking about. So now we'll say Kadshe HaMizbeach Mitzarfin Zeim Zeh LeMi'ilah. So now, let's say I have a korban chatat and a korban shlamim, right? And I'm neh. However, right. So if they're kadshe kadshim, it means I would have to be neheneh from them from the time that they were mukdash until the time of zrikat adam. So let's say I was neheneh from less than a shava pruta of the chatat, and I was neheneh from less than a shava pruta from a korban hasham. But once I'm neheneh from kadshe mizbeach, those two pieces will be mitzaref for the purpose of me being chayav mi'ilah. In other words, as long as I was neheneh from a shava pruta of even various types of kadshe kadashim, kadshe mizbeach, not dafka kadshe kadashim, kadshe mizbeach, they're mitzaref to make me chayav for mi'ilah. They're also mitzaref the chayev alein mishum pigul notar v'tameh. So we know what pigul notar v'tameh is, or those categories are, and so so from the Mishnah, basically, it seems to be saying that if, let's say, to be over on pigul, right? So the kohen who's doing one of the four avodot has to have machshava, he has to have kavanah that he's doing that avodah michutz lezman, right? That he's doing it so that the korban will be brought on the mizbeach after the time it's supposed to be brought on the mizbeach. So if he did a little bit from one korban and a little bit from another korban, those are mitzaref to make him chayav for pigul. And similarly for notar. So let's say if somebody eats from notar, a little bit of notar from here, a little bit of notar from there, but it adds up to the same, but it adds up to the shiur, then it'll be chayav for notar and for being tameh, right? For eating tameh or making something tameh. Kadshe bedek habayit mitzarfin zeim zeh. So kadshe bedek habayit, whatever they are. So again, kadshe bedek habayit could be essentially anything that somebody dedicated to the Beit HaMikdash. They're mitzaref zeim zeh for all purposes, but kadshe hamizbeach, on the one hand, and kadshe bedek habayit, they are also mitzaref zeim zeh le'mi'ilah. In other words, you could be over on the ilah by being ne'neh mikadshe bedek habayit. If you're ne'neh from something that was dedicated to the Beit HaMikdash, then you can be chayav mi'ilah. Again, it has to be shaveh pruta. So let's say you had half a pruta's worth of hana'ah from kadshe bedek habayit, and half a pruta's worth of hana'ah from kadshe hamizbech. Those two half prutot will be mitzaref to make you chayav for mi'ilah, but it doesn't. But not for pigul notar v'tameh, because pigul notar v'tameh are only pertinent to kadshe mizbeach and not to kadshe bedek habayit. I'm going to skip the next one. Kol hapigulin mitzarfin zeim.
Shel, המצטרף, does this mean that you have only done one avera, or does it mean that if
no, it means for any avera, right? So what? Let's understand what we're again, because any of these averot that we're talking about, including the avera of mi'ilah, you need a minimum shiur in order to be chayav mi'ilah. Right?
So if you did in the first avera, you took to yourself 3/4 of a pruta, and in the second avera you took 3/4 of a pruta, so together they make pruta v'chetzi, and it's more than a pruta, then you have an avera. Is this
אפילו חצי פרוטה כאן וחצי פרוטה כאן, הם מצטרפים to make you chayav. Once you have the shaveh pruta, then you're chayav. And kol shekain, right, if you had 3/4 here and 3/4 here, the minute you got to the first quarter of the second one, once you were naneh a quarter and it was mitzaref with the 3/4 here to make you chayav.
Okay, and then the onesh is the same for the meila as a whole, or you have to have two onashim for the two meilot.
No, that's the point. The point is those shiurim mitzaref to make you chayav mi'ilah, and we saw what's the chiyuv that you have to bring it, you have to pay it back, you have to add chomesh, and you have to bring a korban. And Ela Shab.
Well, both together. You
right?
add the two.
You add, so right, and there's because if I only did a chatzi pruta's worth of hana'ah from one of them, I'm not chayav anything. In other words, I'm not allowed to do that, but the Torah is not mechayevet until I benefit
the shiur. You have a shiur, yes.
So here, and this is going to be the important point for us, that in order to be chayav for mi'ilah, you have to have this basic shiur. You have to have a shiur of shaveh pruta that you were naneh in order to be chayav. If you have less than a shiur, you're not going to be chayav. So when we talk about,
but it's the same korban. If you would do it on two korbanot shonim, even of today and tomorrow, and each time it's only a chatzi pruta, אתה לא חייב.
No, להפך, that's exactly what we learned. קודשי המזבח מצטרפים זה עם זה. Meaning, if I took from one korban and another korban, took a half, it was nene chatzi pruta me korban ze. וחצי פרוטה מקורבן אחר, הם מצטרפים זה עם זה.
Even another day?
Even another day.
Occasion, another day, another occasion, I don't know, in the next year.
So far, we haven't defined the a time barrier for this.
Yes.
Okay, so but if you're naneh, even from two different kachei mizbeach, then they're going to be mitzaref, right? So it could be from, okay, the examples we've given. So here. Now, we also said kachei mizbeach mitzarfin zeim ze l'mi'ilah, but also to be mechayeva mishum pigul, right? That's a different isur pigul, right? But again, now it's going to say kol hapigulim mitzarfin zeim ze, kol hanotarim mitzarfin zeim ze, kol hanevelot mitzarfot zo im zu, kol hashratzim mitzarfin zeim ze, dam hasheret uvesaro mitzarfin. Okay, so all of these things are mitzaref, meaning for what purpose? So, hold on, let's look at the Bartanura. Kol hapigulim me'olah, me'chatat, me'asham, u'mishlamim. Right? Any korban from which you can end up with pigul, mitzarfim zeim zeh, la'ochel mehen kezayit, l'yot chayav karet. Right? So the isur, there's an isur of pigul. There's also an isur of eating pigul. It's a isur to make the pigul. You're not allowed to eat the pigul. You're not allowed to eat notar. You're not allowed to eat tameh. So kol pigulin mitzarfim zeim zeh. If I ate chatzika zayit of pigul from one korban, chatzika zayit of pigul from a different korban, those two kizaytim are mitzdaref to make you chayav karet. Kol haniveilot mitzdarfot, v'afil nivlat behema tmeya, nivlat behema Torah. Even if the nevela of a permitted animal to a non-permitted animal, but both of them are nevelot, they're mitzdarfim lekazayid linyan tuma. That is, a kazayid from a nevela is a kazayit of a nevela is mitameh. Nevela is an avatuma, meaning that it's mitameh adam v'kelim. But you have to have at least the kazayit. But avalon malkot, sheino loken ad shiochal kazayit nivlat behema tohora levada. That's for, so the shiurim are mitzdareh from a behema Tmeya and a behema tahora, who both nevelot to produce tuma, but to get malkot for eating a kazayit, it has to be a kazayit from a behema tahora. Or kazayit mean either tahora levada, or either the whole kazayit has to come from the behema tahora, or the whole kazayit that you're eating had to come from the behema tameya. Lefi shehin shnei shemot. There are two names. This idea of shemot, which the Mishnah fleshes out a little bit more here and in other places, is that they're considered to be, for this purpose, different categories. She'ein ochel b'sar behema tameya lokem mishum nevela, ela mishum ochel b'sar behema tameya. In other words, the reason you get malkot for eating the nivlat behema tameya is not because it's a nevela, but because it's a behema tameya. In other words, so it doesn't matter whether you shechted this behema, or if you took a pig and you shechted it, a kosher shrita, it doesn't in any way make it kosher. You're chayav for eating a kazayit of a behema tameh, let's say a pig, regardless of whether it was a nevela or not. For halachic purposes, it doesn't matter. But what do we see? Again, I want to focus here on the idea of tziruf. So, kol hanevelot mitztarfot zoim zo. For what the Bartur was explaining, that if I have a kazayit from a behema tameh and a kazayit, a chatzi kazayit from behema tameh, chatzi kazayit behema tahora, those are mitzdaref to create tuma, right? For which then meaning that two together can impart tuma. So that's their tziruf. Kol hashratzim mitzdarfim zeim zeh, right? So the Torah lists shmoneh shratzim, and when they are dead, they impart tuma. So the Bartenu explains the kol hashratzim mitzdarfim zeim zeh lekazayit l'chayev et ochlan malkot. So here, in terms of you're also not allowed to eat them. So if you eat a kazayit of shratzim, even if it's a half a kazayit from one sheretz and a half a kazayit from a different sheretz, then when you eat all together a kazayit, then you're chayav malkot. Shmoneh shratzim haktuvim b'Torah mitztarfim zeh im zeh, l'chayev ha'ochlan b'cha'adasha, k'shiur tumatan, kach shiur achilatan. The shiur for them imparting tuma is much smaller than a kazayit. It's the size of a lentil. Those are specifically the shmona shratzim of the Torah. So they're mitzdaref. They're again. We have you have the ta'an and the shemet and whatever the chudah that are the different shratzim. If they died and you took a little bit from each of the shmona shratzim to make altogether ka'adasha, then that would be enough for them to impart for them to impart tuma, or even also if you ate from them, that would be the shear for eating for the Shmona Shvatzim specifically. Now
Who would
we
eat them?
come to
Who would eat
who
them
would eat
anyway?
People eat Shvatzim. You might also, God forbid, if you had
the Chinese people, yes.
I don't know, the French people are also known for eating some rather exotic things.
Or the French, but not the Shvatzim.
Now we're getting to the part that Argamor is going to quote. Klal Amar Rabbi Yeshua. Rabbi Yeshua said a general rule. Kol shetumato v'shiuro shavim mitztarfin ze im ze. Anything whose tuma and its shiur are the same are mitztarfin ze im ze. What does that mean? Kol shetumato v'shiuro shavim kegon nevela unevela o sheretz v'sheretz. So the shear that each of those things have, let's say the shear of nevela for tuma, I feel like I haven't been explaining this one. But what we've seen as we go through these different categories, we have this idea that, say, for nevela and for the shvatzim, there's a certain shiur of nevela that imparts tuma, and there's also a certain shiur of nevela that one could eat to be chayav for eating in a nevela. So when Rabbi Yeshua talks about tumato, he means the shear for tuma, and shiro would be the shear for eating. Kosher tumato v'shiro shavim mitztarfin ze im ze. Anything, or actually, no, I'm sorry, you didn't explain that right. Anything whose level of what he means is anything whose level of tuma, the type of tuma that something imparts, is the same as its shear. Then there mitztarev zeimza. We'll give examples in a minute. Tumato velo shiro, shiro velo tumato, lo tumato velo shiro, ein mitztarfin zeimza. Right. So, what does it mean? Tumato velo shiro could go nevela b'sheretz. The tumatan shava. In other words, the tuma that's imparted by a nevela is the same tuma that's imparted by a sheretz. They're both avota tuma, which, if they're metamei a person, that person becomes tamei for that day. He can go to the mikveh, and then in the evening he'll be tahor. So the tuma that's imparted by nevela is the same tuma that's imparted by the sheretz. That's what he means that their tuma is shabbat. But the shiur isn't the same, meaning what? The nevela shiur tumata b'kazayit. As we said earlier, you need a kazayit of a nevela in order to impart tuma, but you only need a ka'adasha from a sheretz for it to impart tuma. So you
have the two criteria have to be equal to belong to the same category.
Yes. So they have to. So if their tuma is the same, but the shiur isn't the same, or what about if the shiur is the same, but not their tuma? What would that be? Kigon nevela umeit, right? So you have a nevela and you have a dead person. The tarvayim mitamin b'kazayit. The shiur for their tuma is a kazayit. A kazayit mean a mate, or a kazayit mean a nevela imparts tuma, right? They're both avota tuma. But what? Di'ilu tumat mate, but their tuma isn't the same, because tumat mate makes the person who touches has contact with the mate, makes him tamei for 7 days. Tumat nevela lo havi ela ad ha'erev. Tumat nevela only makes a person tamei for 1 day. So the shiur of tuma is the same. They're both b'kazayit, but their tuma isn't the same. And what would be lo tumato below shiuro? Kagon mate v'sheretz, right? The tumat mate avishiva, tumat sheretz ad ha'erev. So first of all, their tuma is not the same. And shiuro nami einan shavim, because the shiur of the mate is kazait, and the shiur of the sheretz is b'cha'ad ha'sham. So that this is the klal of Rabbi Yeshua. So you start to see now where it's going. Like Paul said a second ago. So we're talking about specific things that have different halachic implications. So a nevela, a mate, and a sheretz are all things that impart tuma. And there are also things we won't talk about eating the mate, but let's say we're talking about eating the veila or sheretz, you're not allowed to eat them either. So if they're tuma and aside from eating, the shiur at which they impart tuma is may be different, right? So anything there, the tuma and the shiur are the same. The category of tuma, the type of tuma, meaning the type of tuma that it imparts, is it tumat erev or is it tumat shiva? So anything where, let's say, both of them are tumat erev, like nevela and sheretz, those will be that you might think that's mitzaref, but since the shiur isn't the same, because the shiur that I need to impart tuma for the nevela is a kazayit, and for the sheretz, it's only ka'adasha. So what we're starting to see here is that according to Rabbi Yeshua is giving us now this idea that where shiurim don't match, they're not mitzaref. This is what we might take away from Rabbi Yeshua. So let's just read it again. Klama Rabbi Yeshua. Kol shetumato v'shiuro shavin mitzarfin zeim ze. Tumato v'lo shiuro v'lo tumato, lo tumato v'lo shiuro, ein mitzarfin zeim ze. And Bartran just says simply, what does it mean? Ein mitzarfin zeim ze? Ho'il mechudakin hein, because they're divided. They're like separate categories. All right, this was a long introduction to the Gemara, which I don't think we're going to get to finish tonight, but let's just read a little bit, and then I think we'll stop for the evening. So now we come to this, we're in the Gemara in Yoma. Oh wait, I don't think we see that screen. We're here in the Gemara in Yoma. And the Gemara quotes our Mishnah that says, if somebody eats and drinks, the eating and the drinking are not mitzaref to make them chayav on Yom Kippur. So the Gemara says, Man Tana. Who learns this? Who's the Tana who learned our Mishnah? Amar Rav Chisda b'machloket shnuya. Rav Chisda says this was learned as part of a machloket. It's learned as part of a machloket. Rabbi Yeshua, our Mishnah goes like the Bar Plukta Rabbi Yeshua. None, because Rabbi Yeshua says, Chlamamar Rabbi Yeshua, Kol shetumato v'shiro shaveh mitztaref, tumato v'lo shiro, shiro v'lo tumato, lo tumato v'lo shiro, ein mitztarfi. So what we see is Rav Chisda wants to say, when our Mishnah in Yoma says that ochel and shoteh are not mitztaref, he wants to say this is the opinion of Rabbi Yeshua that we saw in Me'ilah, because Rabbi Yeshua says that things that have different shiurim can't be mitztaref. This is we're going to look through this a little bit more closely next time. But Begadol, that's what he's saying. He's saying, look, I look at Rabbi Yeshua, and he says that if things have different shiurim, they're not mitztaref. So Achila and Shtiyah on Yom Kippur don't have the same shiurim, and they're not mitzaref. According to Rav Chisda, this is the day of Rabbi Yeshua, but the Rabbanan, in other words, we saw in the Mishnah, we didn't do the whole thing there, but we have Rabbi Yeshua, he's a Dat Yachid, the Rabbanan disagree with him. So Rav Chisda wants to say, our Mishnah is going like Rabbi Yeshua. And Rav Nachman is going to push back and he'll say, Afilu tema Rabbanan. No, you could learn our Mishnah, even if you'll say that it's going according to the Rabbanan. Ad kan lo ka'ami Rabbanan hatam, el linyan tuma, d'shem tuma chadhi. The Rabbanan only disagreed with Rabbi Yoshua there in Me'ilah because when they were talking about tuma, because the category of tuma is one category. Of ahacha, here by Yom Kippur, mishum yituve datahu. Here, our concern is whether or not this person gets yishuv adat for eating on Yom Kippur. Bahai lo miat v'date. And this, meaning eating and drinking together, less than a shiur of each, doesn't give yishuv hadat. That's the reading. Next week we'll go through and explain it, hopefully better. We'll look at Rashi. I think that's it for tonight, though. Okay, so next time we'll go through, finish the sugya. Once we finish this sugya, we'll be up to the next Mishnah. And I think though next week, I apologize because I wasn't prepared in advance to give a whole shiur on Me'ilah. So I may want to go back and clarify some things at B'kitzur next week. I think it's a lot to take in since it was sort of off the cuff. But that's it for now. And Bezrat Hashem, I'll see you all next week.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
לילה טוב, תודה.